So there seem to be three main factors which have an effect on how expressive a note is. How loud or soft you play that note, whether you pitch bend into a note, or what happens to the note after you've played it. Now, pianos, as we saw in Program 1, are very touch sensitive, although you'd have to do some pretty serious DIY on them to get them to do pitch bending or vibrato. But you can simulate the effect of pitch bending by playing off the note a semitone above or below the melody note, like this. The first popular instrument to have added vibrato was the electric organ through a rotating speaker cabinet, and it sounded like this. Synths had to resort to electronic means to get these effects, and until they came with touch sensitivity, you had to rely pretty much on these two wheels for your expression. Now this is the pitch wheel, which simply bends a note up or down, so you can bend into a note, or you can bend a note while it's playing. This is the modulation wheel, which you can use to have various effects, but is most commonly used for vibrato. You could program these effects into your sound so they come up automatically, like this. But you sacrifice the ability to control your playing on the spot. Now, with touch sensitivity, keyboards have become a lot more expressive, as, for instance, with velocity sensitivity, you can control the volume and tone quality of a note according to how hard you play it, like this. Or with something called aftertouch, you can add an effect to a note while it's sounding. Okay, let's play this tune. While we're on the subject of expression, I should mention the most important instruments of all, your fingers. It's well worth equipping yourself with a technique that will allow you to cope with the trickiest of melodies without having to go in for major surgery. Firstly, try to get used to holding your hand in a relaxed position with your fingers curved over at the ends. Think of there being a straight line between your elbow and these finger joints. Secondly, think about your fingering. That's which finger you use to play each note. Basically, the less contortions you have to go through, the better. There are no hard and fast rules about fingering, although it's worth bearing in mind a couple of basic points. First of all, try to avoid using your thumb on black notes, as you'll find this awkward, unless you're playing, say, this chord of F sharp. Secondly, if you're playing a long continuous phrase and you have to tuck your thumb under to play this, do it sooner rather than later, so you don't end up in knots. Otherwise, it's all pretty much common sense, although if you want to improve your fingering, you have to practice some scales. Here endeth the lesson. Now let's look now at a musician who's combined technique and expression to produce a truly amazing style. This is Jan Hammer.
I have this thing that some of you might know. Get the ferrite started here. Surprised how many different instruments I can get that sort of sound on. It's really not a particular instrument or a particular patch. It's more or less something with a sharp attack, with a reasonable amount of sustain, that is going through some sort of a distortion device or an amp. And then it's down to what you play. You become a guitar player or whatever instrument it is that you hear in your mind for the lead. And it's not just that you're trying to emulate a guitar, because guitar could not do the things that you can do on a keyboard. So you obviously come up with different sequences of notes. And that's where it really gets interesting, because it sounds like a guitar, but something tells you the guitar couldn't do that. We've been talking about the differences between playing at a desk, so to speak, and out in the field. And other than just being, it's got a few more tricks that you have to learn once the keyboard is hanging this way. But the main thing is that it's a whole lot more fun, that you can go out there and just do it.
So, what can a drummer learn from all this lot? Well, when it comes to soloing, I suppose the drums are a bit different from other instruments. First of all, there's the awful cliche of the band walking off stage and leaving you to it. That is, you've got no backing. Also, of course, you've got no true way of utilising melody and harmony. This doesn't mean, however, that you can't be musical. Apart from being able to exploit the vast tonal and dynamic range of the kit, you can also develop and improvise on rhythmic phrases or motifs, and you can work within a structure just the same as would any other instrumentalist. The following piece is based on variations of a couple of rhythmic motifs, and also I've programmed an accompaniment into the drum machine just to emphasise the structure. Of course, on a tuned instrument, as well as structure, dynamics and expression, there's also the little matter of the notes you play. Now, at its simplest, a solo uses the sort of single note melodies that we were looking at last time. Based on the tune, the chords or the scales of the piece, you can either go for it and improvise a solo on the spot, or you can plan it carefully in advance, as does Genesis keyboards man Tony Banks.